At Nancy's very own foundation, we think the YWCA is a pretty wonderful organization because the YW never takes for granted the contributions of women. Social change requires hard work and a huge commitment on the part of each and every one of us here. And it's easy for us now to forget that the commitment of a few women got us where we are today. Marie Corbett is one of those women who crisscrossed this province in the 70s, teaching us about pension reform, family law reform, and environmental work. Therefore, it is our pleasure to turn the tables on Madam Justice Marie Corbett tonight and hand down to her the judgment to present her with a special award in the category of professions, a woman of distinction who epitomizes this year's theme, inspiration for change. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Madam Justice Marie Corbett.
Dedicated, outstanding, and inspirational. Just some of the words used by her nominators to describe Madam Justice Marie Corbett. Justice Corbett's legal career has spanned more than 20 years, including 16 in private practice, and a generous amount of time devoted to committees and associations, teaching, and directorships. 1993 marks the 20th anniversary of the Ontario Status of Women Council. With Marie Corbett as an early member, the Council made an enormous contribution to family law reform in the 1970s. Her intolerance of violence and injustice is clear in her decisions in rape, incest, and custody cases. She has been instrumental in the issuance of a commemorative stamp of Judge Helen Kinnear, the first female judge to be appointed by the Government of Canada 50 years ago.
Anna and Ida, directors, members, and staff of the YWCA, most distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I thank very much the Y and Nancy for the lavish introduction. I'm deeply honored and moved to be a recipient of this special award. I also especially want to thank Nancy Jackman for nominating me for this award. Nancy Jackman's generosity and commitment are legend. But Nancy, your greatest gift to all of us is your wonderful self. I also want to thank my other nominators, the Honorable Madam Justice Karen Weiler and Laura Sabia. Justice Weiler is the fourth woman in Canadian history to be a judge in the Ontario Court of Appeal, and she has shown a lifelong commitment to social justice. Laura Sabia was the first chair of the Ontario Status of Women Council and a courageous pioneer. Her elegant, mature image belied a feistiness that appeared outrageous at the time. Over 20 years ago, she said, "If men got pregnant, abortion would be a sacrament." And remember when Laura bought a single share of Royal Bank stock so she could bring up the subject of the insipid sexist Mary ads at the shareholders' annual meeting. Laura is too ill to be here this evening, but her indomitable spirit has inspired and touched us all. Throughout my life, I have been much blessed. My brothers and I, my two brothers, grew up in a supportive family, raised by a hardworking, widowed mother. I'm delighted that my parents, Anne and Ross McKee, came from Key West to be here this evening. I am blessed by stellar friends and stellar colleagues and by loving in-laws, many of whom are here this evening. I am also here with the kindest, gentlest feminist I know, my husband, Alex Squires. He is an outstanding husband, and to quote our sons, he's the best daddy in the whole world. I am so very happy that our sons, Daryl and Edward, aged 13 and 10, are here this evening. They are the bonus in my life. I have no greater joy than being in their loving, active, and challenging company. While I had children at an older age than most, I am otherwise demographically apt. My attitudes have marched with the times. In the 1960s, I lived my mother's prescription. She said, "You can be anything you want to be if you work hard." With that attitude, I wrote the following for the University of Toronto Law School newspaper in the 60s. I cringe as I read it. Many judges and magistrates and clients, regardless of their opinions of women, will find them a refreshing change. Act accordingly. Unless an irascible bigot is encountered, bracket, usually a woman, close bracket, women's problems are of their own making. So much for sex. Very soon thereafter, I was not hired for a job, although I was the best qualified lawyer applicant because I was a woman. My consciousness was raised. In the 1970s, the women's movement focused on the right to be equal with men, to have equal pay and equal opportunity. One of the first acts taken by the first Status of Women Council was to recommend the repeal of the law that required employers to provide taxis for female employees working late at night. We were tired of protective legislation. We were tired of women being treated like feeble dependents. We said, if women want to be equal on the job, we want no special favors. In the 1980s, we realized that being equal did not always mean being the same. True equal opportunity requires recognition of the reality of our differences. In the 1980s, I expect the Council would not have repealed the legislation giving rights to women because women suffer a disproportionate risk of harm from violence compared to male employees. Feminism evolves and social perspectives vary, and feminists are not all of a piece. The pace of social change is slow. Women have been legal persons for a mere 60 years. 1993 is the 50th anniversary of the appointment of the first woman judge. A second was not appointed by the Government of Canada until 1965, another 22 years. Only 3 women who have been appointed judges by the Government of Canada have so far died. Our history is still with us. Every woman here is a pioneer. What do my attitudes approaching age 50 bespeak for the 90s? Overall, we must address certain realities. The first reality is that despite the invitation, men are not flocking to assume the child care function. The bulk of child care is done by, and I expect will continue to be done by, women. That being the case, and since children benefit all in society, the male work mode must be modified to accommodate child-rearing patterns. Many women raising children are poor, and we must avoid the feminization of poverty. A child-oriented feminism is long overdue. Focus on the quality of children's lives must be paramount. The second reality we must address is the maleness of violence. While few men are violent, the overwhelming majority of violent crime is committed by men. This is not a women's issue. Women cannot address violence alone or with each other. Male values must change. We must talk to men honestly and directly and openly about the nature of violence and our concerns in this society. History owes a debt to the women of the YWCA. These awards share our works and accomplishments and aspirations. Too many women's lives have been lost because we did not ask who came before us and who paved the way. I must conclude, lest I be like the older Irish woman who confessed to her priest, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It is 1 week since my last confession. Father, I commit adultery 3 times. And the shocked priest said, "And when was that?" "Oh," she said, "sure, Father, it was 20 years ago, but I loves to talk about it." Thank you.
The Honorable Madam Justice Marie Corbett. And on that wonderful note, that completes our awards presentation for 1993.